Welcome to episode 100 of Hockey Nights in Vegas. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined as always by Chris Chapman from Fox Sports Las Vegas and from the Vegas Golden Knights pre- and post-game show. Episode 100, along with all the others, is brought to you by the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, and by my very good friend, Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, and by Joe Riccio and Boris over at the Marathon Law Group at www.marathonlawgroup.com. Chap, it's 100 episodes. I got to tell you, when my dear friend Joe Payne and I started this a few years back, the thought of having 100 episodes and being a credentialed media member was just obtuse at its very best. I want to thank you for not filling in, for stepping up when Joe passed away. This has been quite a ride, and I hope that we have the chance to do 100 more together.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I miss Joe. You know, obviously he was a guy that I met year one sitting in the press box. And, you know, when he passed away and you asked me to do this with you, I didn't even have to think about it. It was no hesitation on my end. So, you know, we miss Joe and wish he was a part of this. But, you know, big things going forward.
All right, let's talk a little VGK hockey. That's what the hell we're here to do.
Yeah.
The Four Nations is over. The injury report from the Four Nations is now becoming quite the conversation piece. Charlie McAvoy is done for the year.
Yeah. Joel Eriksson-Ek is out
right
week to week.
Matthew Tkachuk they're lying about it, but he's got a groin and he's in some discomfort.
I think Brady missed a couple games.
And he said it might be a couple more before he's really ready to go.
And, of course, the big one here.
That very large gap in the defense with Shea Theodore being hurt in the first period of the first game against the Finns. So what I'd like to ask you is, the Golden Knights kind of have, I don't want to say an easier schedule, but game-wise, they've got 2 days between the game tomorrow, then they've got 2 games and 2 days until Sunday.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe they're talking about, or would you even consider giving Alex Pietrangelo and Mark Stone and Jack Eichel, maybe giving them a game off and giving them 4 or 5 days to just sort of keep their body, obviously, they're not going to have a chance to go to Cabo.
Yeah.
But, maybe just sort of 5 days of a little mini break to decompress from all the stress. And, do you think they'd even consider something like that?
I think it's a possibility. Look, you're playing the Blackhawks, who I think they have some good players, but they're not a good team yet. They're working to get there on Thursday here in Vegas. So I don't know if any of those guys practiced today. We know the team did not practice on Tuesday after the Kings game. I think giving Stone and Jack and maybe, Aiden took off. He didn't play against the Kings. It was Samsonov in that. But I think giving some of those guys the day off against the Blackhawks, maybe not the worst thing in the world. You get a little bit of an extra break on your body, and then you're ready for New Jersey, which is a 5 o'clock puck drop on Sunday.
Maybe stagger. Maybe give one of them the night off tomorrow, and then
I don't know. I don't know what the schedule looks like after New Jersey. I think they're home on Tuesday.
I'm not sure.
But I haven't even looked.
So, but if you're Bruce, do you consider it?
Yeah. I think you talk to the guys and you see how they're feeling. I think if you're Jack Eichel, if you're Mark Stone, you've got an extra 4 games on your body that a lot of the guys on your team and a lot of the guys that
high pressure 4 games.
Yeah.
The highest
exactly.
pressure 4 games.
Yeah, because every game was really important, and so I think. Listen, if you're Bruce, you talk to those guys and you see how their bodies feel and you see where they are mentally, and you go from there. I think, it's certainly something that should be considered. And like you said, maybe you stagger it. Maybe you give Mark the night off against Chicago. Maybe you give Jack the night off against New Jersey, and from there you go.
You wing it.
Yeah.
So 2 games since the break. a win at home against Vancouver,
which they played really well in.
For a team that hadn't basically been together for the better part of 2 weeks and had one full week off and was just sort of finding their rhythm. Right? Yeah. It was expectedly bumpy in the beginning, right?
Kevin Lankinen played really well in that first period for Vancouver.
Kevin Lankinen prevented the Golden Knights from coasting to an easy win.
Yeah.
Right?
He's a good goalie, and he was rewarded with a big contract. But yeah, he played like a guy on Saturday night who earned that big contract.
And the power play was sluggish the first couple of times, but you could see that it was starting to.
And I think
it's like anything else. Once they get a couple of reps in and they get back to playing with each other, they're going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think that was something that's probably to be expected because you take Jack and Mark away from the team and the guys are practicing, but you can't replicate game action in practice, and you certainly can't replicate power play practice when you don't have two of the biggest factors on your power play.
Right. So all in all, it's a good division win.
Yeah.
It keeps Vancouver. I mean, I don't think they're on the Golden Knights' radar as far as contending for the division, but Vancouver probably still thinks that they're in contention for a wild card. Calgary, and
I think that would not be a bad team for Vegas to draw in the first round of the playoffs.
Or perhaps maybe if they were sellers, take a player from.
Yeah.
Brock Besser.
I don't think they're going to be sellers, though, unfortunately.
I don't know. And then there was that game against the Kings. And I have to tell you, the Kings Golden Knights games are always ugly.
Yeah.
I mean,
they go back ugly years, too.
They're not pleasant to watch, regardless of the results. Even though, a lot of the games were tight. This year, we blew them out 6-1. They blew us out 6-3. A couple of nights ago was the Kings game in Los Angeles at, I guess they call it the Crypt now.
Crypto. Yeah. Crypto.com.
And
it'll always be Staples.
And it was a fairly ugly game that proceeded to get enormously ugly when the Golden Knights gave up 4 in the third to end up losing, I don't know, was it 5-2?
I think that's what it was.
It was.
I kind of tuned out after the fourth goal.
Yeah, it was. Was it just one of those games that they didn't really have it? I mean, they had days off. They flew into LA the day before. It was beautiful and sunny in LA. LA always plays them tough.
Yeah.
Regardless of who the coach is, with Jim Hiller behind the bench now. Do you think that they have a lot more confidence playing the Golden Knights than perhaps seeing Edmonton in the first round? And do you think that the Golden Knights probably will take note of that game and instead of just flushing shitty games like they have to do on occasion, really get into the weeds and break down what the hell went wrong that led to that loss?
Yeah, I think for the Kings, I think they do have a bit of confidence when the Golden Knights come into town because the games always are so close. If you look at what they've done against the Oilers in the playoffs, they've gotten their ass kicked, 3 years in a row?
Smashed.
And I think they've won a couple of those games, but generally the games are not close. It's just not a good matchup for them. Vegas, for whatever reason, seems to be a good matchup for LA. And I think if I'm Vegas and I have my choice between LA and Edmonton, I'd rather see Edmonton because I think much like LA is a bad matchup for Vegas, I think Vegas is a bad matchup for Edmonton.
For sure, especially the way Edmonton's playing now.
It's weird because it's like the three-way dance where someone's strength is the other's weakness, but that team's weakness is another team's strength. So I don't even know if that made sense. It doesn't matter. But I think people know what I'm getting at. And it's weird because that game, the Golden Knights played really good, I thought, for 2 periods.
Solid.
And then I'll quote Bruce here, they played loser hockey after they gave up a couple of those goals in the third period. I don't know if that's the word I would use, like
losing maybe.
Yeah, losing hockey, but I think it was just a bad period. And unfortunately, it's not a one-off against the Kings where they have these moments where LA just seems, and let me just say this, Quentin Byfield is really damn good. And I think he had 3 assists in that game. And it seems like much in the way Anze Kopitar seems to have big games against the Golden Knights all the time. it seems now Quentin Byfield's a guy who seems to show up and have good nights against Vegas. So that's a good team. They've got a lot of good players, and I think having Drew Doughty back in the mix certainly makes them a much, much better team. Listen, I don't enjoy watching the LA Kings, but I can respect the players on the ice for them, and I think they're a good team. I think they're well coached, and they've got some really good players, and it's not an easy matchup by any stretch.
Oh, we have a text message. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we've been teasing this for about 4 or 5 episodes, but episode 100 is going to be truly special because we're going to be joined by a very special guest, and we're not going to tell you who it is. So enjoy a couple of minutes with Dr. John Pierce, and we'll be right back. I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Pierce. We're going to talk about cool sculpting. Back in the old days, it was liposuction. But then if you see the after pictures, they're entirely bruised up. People look like just death, and the recovery is brutal. Nowadays, there's this thing called cool sculpting.
Cool sculpting, really cool. It's non-invasive. Medical term is cryolipolysis. Basically what happens is fat cells freeze at a higher temperature than the skin cells or other cells in the body. We can freeze the fat cells and not damage any other tissue around that. Those cells will die. They go what's called apoptosis or programmed cell death. They basically disintegrate. The body sends in white blood cells that gobbles up the remnants and it deposits them in the colon, and down the drain it goes. Depending on the amount or the area that you're looking to do, it may require 2 or 3, maybe even 4 treatments. It's really, really inexpensive, very, very effective. So if you've got problem areas that diet and exercise aren't taken care of, you got that little pooch or you got some love handles that you want to address, cool sculpting is the way to go. Not a weight loss thing. So, you got problem areas that are bothersome to you, we can target those and get rid of the fat in that area.
This is non-invasive. You come in, you lay in a comfortable chair, the gals take care of you. If you need a little touch-up, you don't have to be vain, so I'm considering it. If you want to consider it, send a message to the gals, www.agelessforever.net. Make an appointment. The first consultation is free. They'll walk you through the entire process, www.agelessforever.net. Send a message, take advantage of the free consultation. Wouldn't be bad to look better naked, would it? All right, we're back. And we have a surprise guest. We've been talking about this for 2 or 3 episodes. Head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, Bruce Cassidy, has joined us. Bruce, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Looking forward to it.
We're going to start out with a really difficult question. The organization made a seismic change about 6 weeks ago when they started letting Chapman ask the first 2 questions in the postgame. How's he doing?
He's doing okay. There's always room for improvement. But I think he's representing the media well with his first question.
Wow, I appreciate that. Big praise from the coach. Bruce, you have an owner and a general manager who they want to win at all costs. The fan base lives and dies with this franchise. So obviously there's great expectations on not only the team that performed, but you as well. So how do you kind of manage those expectations when they're so heavy and high?
Well, you got to keep everything in perspective throughout the course of the year. You're not going to win every game. You're not going to play well every night. But you do have to trend towards being one of the better teams and being a team that everyone thinks of as a contender for the cup and more so favorite is what you'd like to be. Not always possible, but that's kind of the round we'd like to be in. And so I'm good with that. I want to work in an environment where there is pressure to succeed. As long as you have the appropriate resources to do that, right? And I think Bill Foley and his team has always done that. So for me, I'm fine with it. I wouldn't want it any other way, to be perfectly honest.
I want to go back to the 4 nations for just a minute. A couple of the players said that the intensity level was similar to the Stanley Cup final. You were behind the bench. How would you compare, I guess, the series, the two Canada USA
The team that won, right?
Yeah, the team that won. Yeah, the Maple Leaf team. Yeah, the winning Canadian club. Yeah, and the lowly losing Americans. But how is the intensity level behind the bench compared to the Cup run a couple of years ago?
Well, Jack said it like every game was a game 7. That's what it felt like. Well, the first game in Montreal, I mean, you're ready for an intense game. You don't know, and then all of a sudden the 3 scraps happen. So now it's like it's on. So. And it got nasty and physical, and but well played too, right? The tournament, I don't think there was a dirty hit that we were involved, you know what I mean, or suspension, anything like that. It was just hard physical hockey in February, which you're not used to, right? So that's exactly what it was. Even the first game against Sweden was tough. You know, Theo got hurt, competing for a puck, and Finland always plays hard. So all the games were intense and definitely playoff, and the pace was high for a full 60 from all 4 lines. Sometimes you'll see a drop off, right, because a certain skill level as you go, even in the final. But in that one, you had to be on your toes. So shift length was a lot shorter. As a guy on the bench, you're helping the head coach try to manage the people on and off the ice at the right times because they're coming a little sooner. So that was impressive. How every team, I think, was prepared and ready to go. And even look at the final standings. It wasn't like one team was. I mean, Sweden. I think they had 2 overtime losses. They're that close to. Like, it wasn't Canada, U.S. and the rest. I mean, all 4 teams were pretty close, and it could have went any direction. You had to make the right play at the right time, and fortunately, we were able to do it twice in overtime.
You got to see Jack a bit when he was with Buffalo, and you were in Boston, obviously in the same division. But now that he's here, he's, I would say, developed into one of the elite 2-way forwards in the league. You coached a guy in Boston who, no disrespect to Frank Selke, but they should probably name the Selke Award after the guy, Patrice Bergeron. So with 2 elite forwards like Jack and Mark, 2 elite 2-way forwards, I should say, like Jack and Mark, what kind of separates those guys? Like, what makes them elite? Is it all mental? Is it the work that they're putting in, or is it a combination of things?
Well, it's a combination of things, and I'd put William Karlsson in that category in a minute. He's one of the best defensive 200-foot players I've ever coached. So fortunate to be around those guys. I don't think you can win in the end without those types of players that can play on both sides of the puck. What does it take? Well, the physical part is you have to be able to skate well enough to stay above the Connor McDavids of the world and the Matthews, right? So you have to have a certain level of foot speed. Strength in the battles. Defensively usually means you're tying up people. Winning the puck back. Hockey IQ, that's more Mark Stone's. He has a great idea what people are going to do with the puck, before most people do. That's why he's so good in takeaways, right? He can anticipate the play. So I think it takes a combination of the strength, skating, and hockey IQ to be probably both sides of the puck to a certain extent. But the mental part comes in on the defensive side. Playing defense is hard work and commitment in a nutshell. Anybody can learn to play defense. Are you strong enough to skate well enough? Those things might prevent you from being elite, but you should be able to play with any sort of work ethic and commitment. So that's the mental part of it that you have to, as a coach, get the players to buy into if they haven't already. So Jack, to me, I wasn't in the Buffalo locker room. My first conversation with him, this is what we're going to need for you. If you want to be a champion, this is where you got to be a leader. Because, Jack's, I think he's probably the highest paid player in our team.
I think so,
the guys you really look up to. So those guys automatically have a responsibility. And if you can get them to play a certain way and practice the right way, then how can the rest of the group not fall in line, right? Yeah. That's typically one of the things coaches always try, or at least I try to do. And Jack, was agreeable, amenable to it 100% right away. It's what he felt. He trusted that we were telling him was the truth. And he went out and did it, and he became a Stanley Cup champion, and now is getting some accolades that have been deserved for a while now.
That you brought up that conversation. I'm a Detroit guy. 30-some years ago, Steve Yzerman put up 137
Went through
points.
the same process with Scotty Bowman.
Right? And that's what I want to ask you. There was, I don't want to call it a coming to Jesus conversation, but Scotty said, if you want to win a cup, you got to change the way you play. Right? You got to be more of a 200-foot player. Similarities in the conversation?
I would say there was, except I didn't have Jack from the beginning, whereas I think Steve came in, Scotty came in after Jacques Demers, I think.
Right.
So he had already been in the league and was a guy that was looked upon to score. So a bit like it's similar. It's very similar because probably similar ages. Jack was a well thought of player long before he came to Vegas. He was well respected in Buffalo. They weren't in playoff series just like Detroit wasn't with Jacques Demers. Now all of a sudden they have a chance to win, and that's a big part of it. So very similar conversation. The player has to want to do it, right? I'm sure there's examples around the league where coaches have tried, and I don't want to start picking out players where it hasn't gone as well or they're still in that process. And it may happen to the young fellow coming in tomorrow. Connor Bedard may have to go through that down the road. And Celebrini and San, you know what I mean? Jack Hughes in Jersey. So there's guys that were in those other Stevie's shoes and Jack's shoes that will have to make decisions in that. And some of that is a little bit of maturity too. Don't forget when you come into the league at 18, 19, you're not a man. You're good enough to play in the league, but you're not man strong yet. Your mental part of your game has still got a long way to go. So I wouldn't rush those players in terms of judging them, but at some point, I think they have to be. It just has such a great effect on the rest of your team when your top guys are going to play a 250. When your most skilled guy does it, as I said, I think everyone falls in line.
Kind of a fun one, but you spend a lot of nights on the road, obviously, being an NHL coach, but those days where you maybe have an extra day off in a city, what's your favorite road city, and what does a typical day off look like if you're in, say, Nashville or Toronto or
Toronto is automatic Hockey Hall of Fame, and there's some nice night stuff in there, so I suggest you go see it. There's the Summit Series for Team, speaking of 4-8, the Team Canada versus, I grew up watching that, 1972, so there's a great exhibition on that. So that would be Toronto. If it's warm, it's Tampa or Florida. I'd like to golf if I can. Get the staff out, whoever likes to play. Like to be out in the sun. Here in Vegas, you get a little more of that, but when I was with Boston, it was tougher till May. Montreal, love walking around. I'm from Ottawa originally, so it's a very metropolitan city. My mother was born there. It's a great place to eat and walk. Just walk, maybe do a little shopping. But, Nashville, the country music. My daughter's getting me into it. So yeah, stop into on Broadway Street a few places. That's always a good one on the road. I don't know if we've had too many days off there over time. I like Vancouver. I like walking by the ocean, the bay there, kind of the ocean part of it, or going to Stanley Park.
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
beautiful.
Go rent a bike in Stanley Park. I like to bike ride outside anyway, just whatever, 10 speed and zip around. It's a great ride.
Yeah.
I've done that many times.
I kind of like to watch the seaplanes land. It's kind of a unique thing.
You sit up top by the Fairmont there, where the big cruise ships come in. There's if you're just chilling out, I think it's a good spot too. I can enjoy any city off day. But those are the ones that come to mind right away. We don't have a lot of off days in LA, or because we're one and done. It's now more in the East, where it used to be the opposite for me. So we'll see. We got an upcoming one where Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Columbus in March. Those don't sound like walking around days.
Not really.
Making a walk.
Yeah, Niagara Falls.
So one year I went to the Ohio State. Went through. They got a tour of that.
Oh yeah.
I grew up a Buckeyes fan. Long story. I'm a Canadian. I'm a free agent, so I get to pick who I want. But,
big Woody Hayes guy.
It was cool to go through their facilities. So I'm sure it's like Alabama, Michigan, all those big Texas big schools. So so there's always something to do somewhere.
He's a big Michigan Wolverine guy. So
born and bred. That's okay. I'm a Big Ten guy. The Big Ten got the last two, so that counts for something.
And somehow Rutgers is in there now too.
So when you take the coaches out for dinner, what's the drink of choice?
I'm a red wine guy, or Guinness. I know they're a long way apart, but some of the fellas like martinis. I've had probably one martini in my life, so I'm not really more, as I said.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I think that's
it.
I could come up with something up. So I know you coached in Trenton at one point.
Yep, Trenton Titans.
Their
inaugural season?
And they were ECHL?
ECHL, I think it was 2000, 99, 2000, somewhere right around there.
Did you get hooked on the old pork roll, egg, and cheese when you were in Trenton?
No, I did not. Interesting that the rink was right beside like a prison right there.
Nice. That's New Jersey for you.
But it's a brand new rink. It was a great facility for the East Coast League.
Cheap real estate.
There was an Italian restaurant there kind of downtown. This guy was really good to the coaches and players. He didn't make a lot of money back then. you still don't in the East Coast League. So he was good to us, and I forget the name of it, but I ate there a lot. But it's just your normal Italian. So
What's your go-to Italian dish?
I'm a risotto guy. Love
Ooh.
risotto. Got to watch the dairy. That's all. So I got to make sure I talk to the chef. And I like ossobuco.
Ooh.
So those would be the two I try to go with. Listen, I eat chicken parm, bolognese, all of that stuff. Don't get me wrong, but those are the two that usually, if they're on the menu, I'm having if they recommend.
A lot of the players, if you asked them now who they looked up to coming up, a lot would say Sid, a lot would say Ovi. Coaches that were influences on you, that guided you sort of on the path that got you here.
Well, when I was a player, it was Bobby Orr, so I might as well start with that. He was my guy. Coaches, Brian Kilray, I coached, played for in junior. We won a Memorial Cup, which is emblematic, top junior team in Canada. He was always very good to me. What I liked about Brian, he never tried to put a square peg in a round hole in terms of the type of player you were. So he let you be yourself, but do it within the framework of the team. So I believe in that. Daryl Sutter, we won in the minors in 1990. Daryl taught me how to win and sacrifice to win. He was hard to play for in terms of rigid in terms of how he wanted to play with structure. But after you leave him and play for some different guys, you realize he meant well for the team. He cared about you and he wanted the team to play a certain way and believed in it. And I believe in it. I took a lot of that to the Knights team a couple of years ago. And, it doesn't mean you have to only play defense. It means defense leads to offense a lot of times. And that's a buy-in, right? And it's the truth. You play good defense, you're going to get the puck back, and that usually leads to great offense. So I really learned that from him. So those are two of the guys I'd say had the most influence.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of those trends in, I think, every sport where in order to win, you have to play good defense. And I coached girls basketball, and it was the same thing. They played defense first, and baskets came later. But it seems like that's kind of the way it goes in all sports. You got to play good defense in order to generate good offense.
Typically, right? Like, I don't know if the NBA is changing a little bit that way with all the three-point shooting. I'm sure it does if you shut that down. But I know in every other sport, pitching usually trumps hitting.
Yeah.
Usually. You defend in hockey, you're in every game. Football, you could argue that, maybe those air attacks and, I grew up in the New England area. The Patriots were winning a lot. They had great defense. They were just talking about Tom Brady, right? But they had great defense.
Teddy Bruschi and all those guys.
Yeah. They were rock solid.
A couple of times in the postgame this year, you've talked about how this team sort of reminds you of the Cup run a couple of years ago. How much of that is what your eye sees, and how much of it is sort of statistics? And do you back up what your eye sees with analytics? I mean, what's the mix?
I do. We have a great analytics team here, so they give us stuff post game every game. We have 10-game reviews so that we can get a decent sample size, go through it, see what it looks like. Usually your eye test, I'd say on 9 out of 10 subjects, 8 out of 10, you're pretty accurate. There's one you go, oh, geez, probably didn't notice that. Let's take a look at that and dive into it. That's what they're there for. I find it's more like our team from 2 years ago in terms of the locker room, the personalities, just a little bit of some young players, some new players coming in. I think I was new, but a few younger guys came in and made impacts in the team, like Howden and Cotter and Amadio, that maybe, last year we were a little more set from the get-go, right? Which was a good thing. It just was different than this year and the first year.
Bruce Cassidy, ladies and gentlemen, episode 100 of Hockey Nights in Vegas. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time.
Congrats.
We really do appreciate it.
Congrats on 100, fellas.
Thank you.
I hope you make it to 101.
That's all we're hoping for. We'll be right back after a quick word from Marathon Law. Thanks again, Coach. Appreciate it.
I'm here with Joe Riccio from Marathon Law Group. And Joe, one of the things couples make is they want things to be amicable when they go through a divorce. And a lot of times they'll use the same lawyer. Why is that a mistake for couples to use the same lawyer?
Well, thanks, Chris. It's definitely a mistake if you have issues or you have conflict in your divorce or your custody or your support, because naturally when a lawyer comes in, they're supposed to be defending your best interests against your spouse, which can be an awkward exchange. Naturally, if one party wants something that the other party doesn't want to give, now the lawyer finds themselves in a conflict, and that could be a problem, meaning that the client, the party, may not be getting the advice, the best advice that they need.
How about that, boys and girls? Head coach Bruce Cassidy joined Chapman and me for episode 100. I hope that surprise was as good a surprise as it was when we found out we were going to have him a couple of days ago. We have to thank our good friend G Money, the king of all Vegas Golden Knights communication. Sure, I can say that too, like I mumbled through the Canada question with Bruce a few minutes ago. G Money, thanks so much. We really appreciate this. It really humbles us to know that we're in good enough standing that we can have guests like head coach Bruce Cassidy. But now we move on. 5-game homestand. The last big homestand of the year starts tomorrow night with the lowly Chicago Blackhawks. Chapman's New Jersey Devils come in, and I couldn't give a rat's ass about that game, but I am excited to watch Paul Cotter get super emotional when he gets his tribute video on Sunday and the chance to go and talk to my fellow Michigander after that. Then it's Pittsburgh, Toronto, and the Kings. This is it. This is pretty much the homestand. This is the last chance where they're going to have time to make fortress hay. What are we expecting from the Golden Knights? Having a couple of days off before Chicago, and then another couple of days off before Jersey comes in.
Well, it's going to be really interesting because you've got 4 teams coming in that you have not seen in Vegas once this year. In fact, they haven't seen the Pittsburgh Penguins at all. They haven't gone there yet either. So I think they go there in 2 weeks. So it's a really important homestand because this is the last big homestand of the season. You got 5 games. You've got to maximize your points as you hope that you start to play your best hockey of the season. I mean, Eddie, we're basically in March.
We are, yeah. 24 games to go.
And this is that one of those home stretches where you look at the schedule, they're better than New Jersey. They're better than Chicago. They're better than Pittsburgh. And then you've got 2 wild cards in there in Toronto and LA, who you just saw a couple nights ago. So I think at a minimum, you're wanting to get 6 points. I think you're hoping to get 8 or 9. I mean, listen, 10 is a lot, right? That means you swept the homestand. I think that's tough. You know, you may have an overtime loss in there or something, but you know, you've got five chances, and this is your last big stretch of games at home. You've got to make the most of the opportunity. Listen, like I said, there's a bunch of teams that you're better than. You've got to get points against those guys.
Well, if I was a gambling man, I would go with lucky 7. I think that's the number they have got to get out. Now, we don't prepare very much for this, as all of you know, so we can't tell you where Toronto is the night before they get here or where LA is coming from. But, you know, there are 3 very winnable games. Listen, you weren't on the trip this year, but the game that they played in New Jersey, what was it, a month ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that?
So just for informational purposes, Toronto has a home game. This is the first game of their West Coast road trip.
How many days before here? They play Monday and come here Wednesday?
They play on the 3rd of March, and then 2 nights later, they're playing in Vegas.
So they got to come west?
Yep.
Okay. That's an interesting gamble.
It's a really weird schedule for them because they're on the road currently. They won last night in Boston. Then they go to the Rangers and Pittsburgh, go home for 1 game against the Sharks, and then come out west.
Well, I think that, I mean, the New Jersey game, like I was mentioning before, was the best game they played
all season,
I think for sure all season. I mean, literally, I was sitting with our friend Paul Delasantos from NHL.com, and the game was a snoozer. And normally when you would say a game is a snoozer, you'd be like, oh, this is not good. But the Vegas Golden Knights were so good that the game wasn't even fun to watch. It was the proverbial man against boys game. I mean, they outshot them 38-15 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was as close to, and shit, we should have asked Bruce. That game was as close to find your game as we've seen. If they can find any percentage of that magic going forward, Chicago's very winnable. They better not take them lightly because Chicago's won.
Well, they already
a couple of
lost to
games.
Chicago this year.
Right. So they'll be mindful of that. Pittsburgh is just fucking awful.
Yeah,
Right?
they're
There's
no good.
You know, I mean, I don't feel bad for Sid's wallet, but I feel bad for Sid's everything else.
Yeah, I like Sid.
Gino and
Yeah.
Letang and stuff like that. But this team needs 7 points out of 10 because once they get on the road, it gets pretty compacted, and it's not, you know, it's like Buffalo and Detroit back to back, and then Vancouver, and you know they've got a lot of road miles yet to pull.
Yeah.
Before they head into what we expect will certainly be a playoff run starting in the middle of April. So, you know, I think they're certainly up to the task. I think that having 2 days off before this game and taking 1 day fully off and then practice.
Yeah.
I would suspect that if they practice both days before the Jersey game, that Jack and Mark and Alex will take a maintenance day.
Yeah.
Right? They need to get them. They need to get them.
Those guys
rest.
need to be ready.
Yeah.
And primed.
And you know what? It might be as much decompression as it is rest.
Yeah.
Because apparently, you know, and Bruce kind of confirmed it. It was like Stanley Cup Game 7.
Yeah.
And that's holding on to Stanley Cup Game 7 for 8 or 9 or 10 days.
Yeah.
So, you know, the pressure cooker was on full blast. And I wouldn't mind seeing one of them take the next 2 games off.
Yeah.
And then whenever Pittsburgh comes to town, have the third one skip the Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, I would think
full boat with what we have for Toronto and the Kings,
Mhm.
right? But listen, I'll probably get laughed at, and that might be the stupidest thing I've said in 100 episodes. But I firmly believe that those extra 2 days that we can squeeze in for the bona fides, the Four Nations guys, I think it would help a lot. Hey, Jack, don't even come to the rink.
Yeah, stay home.
Right.
Enjoy your time.
Play video games.
Go to the
do
pool.
whatever the hell you want to do. The weather's, you know, pool season starts in 4 or 5 days in Vegas. So
have some carne asada.
Yeah.
You know, enjoy your day off, man.
So before we go, we have a ticket giveaway to talk about. And I am an idiot because in the last episode I said that the game was March 16th against the Detroit Red Wings. They do play the Detroit Red Wings on March 16th, but it happens to be in Detroit.
Yeah, we're not sending you there.
And you would thank us because I'm from Detroit, and just thank us. However, that being said, no dig at my great hometown, the D, March 22nd, just a scant 6 days later, the Detroit Red Wings will visit the Fortress. It's a Sunday. Oh, no, it's not even a Sunday afternoon. It's a Saturday night game. 7 o'clock is puck drop. 2 tickets in the lower bowl, section 4. Free parking. Early dinner at the Eldorado Cantina with Chris Chapman and I.
That place is good.
Top shelf Mexican food.
It's good.
So what do you get? 2 tickets, free parking, free chow, a great game against the currently number 1 wild card in the Eastern Conference, mighty Detroit Red Wings, I will have you know. So it should be a spirited event, especially if there's any chippiness 6 days prior in Detroit. What do we want you to do? It's the same shtick, right? Like the podcast on the YouTube page. Comment, win. Yeah, like it, comment, win. Share it if you can.
And WIN.
Yeah, not WIN.
Yeah.
No, win. Comment, win. And you'll be entered in the drawing. There's going to be 2 more episodes. So you can have up to 4 chances to enter this drawing to win 2 tickets in the lower bowl to see the Detroit Red Wings on the 22nd of March, 7 p.m. Saturday night hockey in Sin City. Lower bowl seats, section 4, courtesy of Joe Riccio at Marathon Law. I don't know what else we've got to do to beg you to subscribe. There's nobody else giving you tickets. There's nobody else even paying for your parking. And there's certainly no one else giving you arguably the best Mexican food restaurant in the city as a pregame meal with these 2 handsome bastards.
And listen, there's no podcast that's sitting down with Bruce Cassidy.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I strained my shoulder. But so, yeah, there's the golden giveaway, possibly the last golden giveaway, but you never know. We might sneak one in April. So that's going to wrap up episode 100. I'm fucking exhausted, Chris. This was stressful.
Yeah.
This was a lot.
Yeah. New digs next week, though.
New digs next week. We got another surprise for you. I want to thank Garrett Calloway again from the Golden Knights for bringing us Coach Bruce Cassidy for episode 100.
That's awesome.
Gee, we're forever in your debt for getting Bruce to agree to this. I want to thank our sponsors, as always, the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, my very good friend, Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, and the aforementioned Joe Riccio and Boris at Marathon Law Group, www.marathonlaw.com. Chris, it's been an honor. Here's to 100 more. Episode 100 is in the books. I'm exhausted and I'm going to take a nap.
Yeah, I got to go to work.
We are out of here.